Hey guys, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Jenna, and this is our daily show giving you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus insight into what it all means. And joining me as always is AMC Editor-in-Chief John Campea.
Greetings, citations, everybody. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning.
And proud to announce that I am one of the founding members of the California Burbank chapter of the Sons of Anakin.
Wow.
I love this shirt, by the way.
You've showed it off on this show before.
I don't know. I think it was my Superman shirt I showed off. I love this shirt. Good morning.
And also joining me is the AMC Associate Editor, Amy Rose Eisenbach.
What up, what up?
Hey, lady.
Oh, hey, lady.
All right, John, we need to start with this. Over the past few days, there has been some discussion on the show and around the web about who could possibly step in and play Iron Man if Robert Downey Jr. decided to hang it up either before or sometime after Avengers 2. Now, for those of you who don't know, John, while wanting Robert Downey Jr. to continue playing Iron Man, is totally fine with someone else stepping in if needed. Wow. This position prompted over 1,400 comments on our Facebook post, with almost all of them chastising John, saying no one can replace Robert Downey Jr. John, you and Amy Rose have different points of view on this. Explain why you think it would be okay for someone else to play Iron Man if Robert Downey Jr. ever decided it was time to hang it up.
As opposed to just explaining why it would be okay for somebody else to step in and play Iron Man, I'm going to explain the truth. And here is
As he does often.
the truth, all right? Look, first of all, Jenna already mentioned it, but let me preface everything I'm going to say by this. My pick to play Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr. That's my pick. That's who I want. If I was in charge of the studio, that's who I'd let him play Iron Man as long as he wants to play Iron Man. So let's just get that out of the way. With that being said, I am hugely against this notion, this myopic, short-sighted notion that just because one actor or director or whatever does great in a particular role, that means that that actor or that director is the only person who could play that role or direct that film. That is simply extremely short-sighted and naive. Now, just because Robert Downey Jr. has done an amazing job playing Iron Man, that does not exclude the idea that somebody else could step in and also do an amazing job playing Iron Man. Look, here's one of my arguments. If, let's say we did a little bit of time warp here. If Sean Connery were around today and was kind of more or less in his prime and was still playing James Bond, right?
Yeah,
now,
he's still here.
I believe, he's still around as he's still acting because he's retired. He's not in the business anymore.
Don't bury him yet.
But like everybody knows that my philosophy, my belief is that the new James Bond is the best James Bond we've ever had. Now, that's my belief. And a lot of people will agree with me, a lot of people will disagree, but what we will all agree is that that Daniel Craig is a great James Bond. Whether you think he's the best ever or not, that's irrelevant. So now let's say Sean Connery is still around today, acting in the business.
That kills me.
Because he's retired.
Give him some
That's what I mean.
respect.
He's retired. Let's say he was still in the business today, and we did a little bit of a time warp, and he was younger, and he was still playing James Bond. And I made the suggestion on the show, or Amy Rose made the suggestion on the show. You know what? I bet there are other people out there who could do a great job playing James Bond. Well, with today's mentality, everybody would be jumping up and down going, no, only Sean Connery can play James Bond because he's awesome at it. Only Sean Connery can play. Nobody else can play him. Well, guess what? There's this little guy named Daniel Craig that none of us had ever heard of.
Little guy?
Yeah, that none of us
You're
had
on
ever
fire
heard of
today.
because up until James Bond, all he was the secondary character in that Tomb Raider movie. And guess what? There was this guy out there called Daniel Craig who would be an awesome James Bond and prove that he could be. Look, it reminds me a lot of the same kind of arguments that we had that were going around when the first news came out that in Iron Man 2, Marvel wasn't going to bring back Terrence Howard. There was, a lot of people deny it now, but I remember those days. People were so angry. And they were on the chat boards saying, if Terrence Howard isn't in Iron Man 2 as Rhodey, I'm not going to watch it. Because nobody can play Rhodey the way Terrence Howard played Rhodey. He was perfect. And guess what? Don Cheadle stepped in, and it was just fine. Didn't miss a beat. And now we all think of Don Cheadle as Rhodey. You look at the Harry Potter franchise. You know, if you had suggested, hey, we're going to get rid of Richard Harris as Dumbledore, and bring in somebody else, people would have lost their minds. Said, no, it can't happen. You can't have Harry Potter without Richard Harris. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, Richard Harris passed away. We had Michael Gambon step in.
Extreme.
Well, wait a minute, though. But the point is, we had another actor, Michael Gambon, step in. And guess what? Harry Potter moved on just fine. Now, maybe he wasn't quite as good of a Dumbledore as Harris was, but he was very good, and he was good enough that the rest of Harry Potter went on without a beat. My only point here is this. To say that just because one guy has played a role great, that means nobody else could play it and do great as well, is myopic, naive, and short-sighted. Somebody else could. I want Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. I think we all do. That's what we want. But if, for whatever reason, if Robert Downey Jr. decided that, hey, you know what? I've played Iron Man long enough. I've given so much to this character. I've paid my dues. I've put my heart and my soul into this character for so long. I deserve to step away and do other things now. If he ever decided to do that, I think it's okay. It's not ideal. It's not what we would pick, but it's okay because there are other actors out there. Remember, nobody wanted Heath Ledger as the Joker. Nobody wanted Heath Ledger as the Joker. And then he did an amazing job. And now we all say, nobody else can play the Joker. Well, that wasn't the song you were singing before he played it. So let's just keep that in mind and be a little more open-minded about it. So, Amy Rose, express your closed-minded point of view.
First of all, false. Second of all, what a long-winded explanation. I'm exhausted. Okay, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. He is Tony Stark. It's synonymous. He is born for that role. I think everyone can agree that he's just the most amazing. Now, what I don't like is already, if he's not signed on for Avengers 2, as we know he's not yet, to just be like, well, if he's not signed on, let's see who else will play. I want to still believe that he's going to sign on because he's so good at that role. He literally, it's match made perfect in heaven.
I don't think there's any doubt that he will be back for Avengers 2.
Other actors that could play him, sure, but I don't even want to think about that yet because he is still Iron Man to me. But of course, I mean, you're right. People don't like change. We don't. When we find something that we don't like change. So we're slow to evolve with it. But it does happen. And then, you know, a lot of amazing actors out there that you've discussed yesterday on the show could potentially do it. Would they be as good as Robert Downey Jr.? Only time will tell. But I don't want to just, you know, tip in the hat and look at other actors already because I still think he should keep playing him. But no, I mean, change is hard to adapt to sometimes, and we only know until he's on the big screen showing us what they can do.
You know who's really good at this sort of stuff? Doctor Who fans. Seriously, Doctor Who fans get it. They understand that Doctor Who is bigger than the actor playing him. They are. Doctor Who fans understand that the character is bigger than the actor playing him. And so how many Doctor Who's have they had now? 17?
Yeah.
17 or 18? I think it's literally 17 or 18 Doctor Who's. I haven't watched a lot of Doctor Who since I was a kid, so full disclosure. But Doctor Who fans just take it in stride. They understand, okay, we lost that actor that we loved, but now there's a new Doctor Who, and we're moving forward with it. And I think film fans would be really well served if they adapted that same. I'm fully in agreement with you, Amy Rose. I want Robert Downey Jr. back. We want him. I'm just saying, if he decides either before Avengers 2 or after Avengers 2, because I think we all believe he'll be back for Avengers 2, but I also believe that's going to be it for him, that I believe, you know what, it's okay. It's unfortunate, but it's okay. Let's welcome in the new Iron Man, whoever it's going to be, whenever Robert Downey Jr. decides to step away, and let's embrace it and just move forward, like the Doctor Who fans know how to do.
Can't be us telling you guys to evolve, but I think you look just fine for where I'm sitting.
All right.
The upcoming Marvel movie Guardians of the Galaxy, which will lead directly into Avengers 2, is slowly putting its cast together. We already know that Parks and Rec star Chris Pratt will lead the film as Star-Lord, and recently we learned that WWE superstar turned actor Dave Bautista has been brought on to play Drax the Destroyer. Now it appears Marvel has found their female lead. Reports are coming in that actress Zoe Saldana is in negotiations and close to signing on as Guardians member Gamora, a skilled assassin with green skin, and is the last of her species. More interesting, though, is the fact that the character was raised and trained by supervillain Thanos, who we saw at the end of Avengers and will be the main villain for Avengers 2, before eventually turning against him. Amy Rose, thoughts on Saldana joining Guardians of the Galaxy?
I really, really like this casting update. I think Saldana is a fantastic actress. I love her as Uhura in Star Trek. I also really liked her in Avatar as the blue fighting, you know, whatever her character was. I really like her. an actress. Not only is she beautiful, but she's a believable badass, and she's great. I think Guardians is shaping up rather interestingly. Chris Pratt, I still am surprised that he was cast as Star-Lord. I'm still shocked about that. And like Bautista, I mean, it's really funny because rappers turned actors used to be this huge phase, and now it's like wrestlers turned actors and is becoming this new big craze. So I do think that this is a very good choice, and hopefully they will get the rest. Rocket Raccoon, like we have a lot of other cast members and voices only to fill, but I think this is a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I agree with you, Amiroz. I love the idea of Zoe Saldana playing Gamora so much that I'll go as far as to say that Zoe Saldana is the only actress who can play Gamora. No,
blasphemy!
No, honestly, but she is great. She's also in that movie that I like to reference a lot, that Dennis and I talk about a lot, really underrated, The Losers. That she was in with, Chris Evans, Captain America himself.
Yeah, that's fun.
She was really great in that. She can do action. She's got like a badass physique. She can do all this kind of stuff. She's a tremendous talent. Honestly, I never thought of her playing Gamora. Her name never crossed my head. But honestly, if you had suggested it to me, we didn't hear that it was official, I would go, holy crap, she'd be perfect. She'd be great for this. Yeah, super excited. But I'm still with you on I still haven't been able to wrap my head around the Chris Pratt thing leading this. I'm so curious to see how that works out.
It'll be interesting.
Because I still don't know. All right, folks, well, listen. We've come to that part of the show for buy or sell. What's going to happen here is that Jenna has a bunch of other issues in the world of movie news in front of her. She's going to list them off, and then Amiroz and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Jenna, what do we got?
It's being reported that Brad Pitt will lead the World War II tank action film Fury, to be directed by end-of-watch director David Ayer. The film takes place in 1945 as the Nazi regime collapses and the five-man crew of an American tank called Fury battles a desperate German army. John, buy or sell Brad Pitt in Fury?
I buy it, and I buy it big. First of all, Brad Pitt is phenomenal. He's a phenomenal actor and performer. He isn't always in the best films, but he's always great doing his roles. And I love the idea of a tank action movie. Actually, a friend of mine, Peter Briggs, has this movie he's developing right now called Panzer 88, which is kind of it's about a Nazi tank crew that runs into a bunch of monsters during World War II, which I think sounds fascinating. But yeah, Fury sounds great. A tank action film sounds great. I buy.
I also buy. I loved End of Watch, so to see another Ayer film, I'm really excited about it. I thought it was riveting and intense and really, really well done. Brad Pitt's a phenomenal actor, so yeah, I'm excited about this.
A new poster for the upcoming Michael Bay film Pain and Gain, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Mark Wahlberg, has emerged that you can see here. Amiroz, buy or sell this new poster for Pain and Gain?
I'm gonna buy it. Michael Bay, well played on this one. I definitely had my doubts when I first heard about this film. It sounded kind of ridiculous, but I think it looks really fun, and it's not taking itself too seriously. And I'm not a giant Michael Bay fan. I think he sold out a long time ago. But with this was his passion project, and I think it looks funny. And I love Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne and Anthony Mackie, so I think it's gonna be fun.
I also got to buy this poster, and one of the reasons I buy the poster in itself is because from the trailer you can clearly tell the movie's about the three of them, Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, and Anthony Mackie. But the first posters came out, it was just The Rock and Mark Wahlberg. And I get it, that's where your star power is. But it's nice in this poster seeing that Anthony Mackie is in there because it's more representative of the actual movie. And I agree with Amiroz. Michael Bay clearly has some stigma attached to his name, but I think a lot of people would be talking more positively about this movie if you took Michael Bay's name off it. People look at this trailer and look at the synopsis and say, this sounds really
fun.
Good. And so I have no problem saying I'm excited for Pain and Gain.
Brother of Thor and star of The Hunger Games, Liam Hemsworth is reportedly set to star in the sci-fi conspiracy thriller The Raven, being produced by Entourage producing duo Mark Wahlberg and Stephen Levinson. John, buy or sell Liam Hemsworth leading The Raven?
I actually got to sell this. I've had a chance to sit down and talk with Liam Hemsworth a couple times, and he is actually a really nice, sweet guy. But so far, whether it's in The Hunger Games or whether it's in Expendables 2, he has not wowed me. I don't know that I could buy into him leading a film yet. I'm not saying he's incapable of doing it. I'm simply saying I haven't seen it yet. So it will be curious to see how well he does carrying a film like this. But just for now, I got to say I sell it.
I'm going to buy it for the very reason you said. I don't think he's been given an opportunity to wow us. I mean, while in the Hunger Games moving forward in the trilogy, he is going to have a much more pivotal role. But in the first one as Gale, I mean, it was very minor. And, you know, and Expendables 2 also very minor. I think that, you know, as seen through his brother, Thor, Chris Hemsworth, he's amazing. And he's a really good actor. And I do think it's going to run in the family. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic for this.
Okay, folks, well, we've come to that part of the show for mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you would like us to address on air, you can send us your question anytime by emailing us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Send in your questions. We get an awful lot of them, but every day we pick out a few and we read them on air, and Jenna's got a bunch of them pulled out. So, Jenna, what do we got?
Our first question today is a video question that comes to us from Wesley Austin about the X-Men costumes.
Woo!
Check it out.
So with the success that all the other Marvel movies have had with staying true to the characters' costumes, do you think that Bryan Singer will finally, once and for all, be done with those black leather costumes that he put the X-Men in? I've always been an X-Men fan, and I've grown up with them, you know, for almost 30 years of my life. And I think, you know, even over the decades as the costumes have changed, each character had their individual palette. And, you know, even just looking from the neck down, you could always tell who you were, you know, what character was in front of you. And I think that Bryan Singer killed the identities of the X-Men. I've always had confidence in him as a director. There's a lot of other things I didn't like that he did with the X-Men, but you know, I know how everybody wants to put their own twist on things. Do you think that it would be a good idea for him to finally do what I would call justice to the X-Men that we've grown up with? Or do you think he's going to continue with trying to make it too modern or I guess everyday based? You know, I think he tried to make the X-Men too real and too relatable, and I think the hardcore fans, you know, they want their X-Men, not these characters in black suits that have the powers of the X-Men.
Thanks a lot for the question, Wesley, but I got to disagree with you. I got to respectfully disagree with you. First of all, let's look at the Marvel stuff. You say Marvel's doing all the costumes right. Really? Hawkeye doesn't look like Hawkeye does in the comic books, because I think they understood that Hawkeye's look in the comic book would just look kind of silly on a big screen in that environment. And I believe there are a couple of other characters too where they take more liberties because they know that doesn't work. Thor's costume is they take some liberties with that as well. But remember, he starts in another world, so there's kind of an explanation for that. I, as an X-Men fan, did not want to see Wolverine in the tight yellow spandex. I just don't. I think that looks great on the printed page. I do not think that would have looked good.
Speak for yourself, Jack.
X-Men in an X-Men First Class, like, look, when they did go true to the comic book, I mean, Emma Frost was the closest to her comic book counterpart, and she looks silly. I mean, she looks
silly.
She's
hot as hell,
but she looks silly. I mean, so sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. I think what you need to do is do whatever you think will work best for the movie. And as far as, you know, the hardcore fans want those costumes, well, let's be honest here. The hardcore fans represent about 1% or less of the actual audience going to see these films. So you've got to make these movies that will translate well and be most effective for the audience that you're going to have. Make it effective, make it right, adapt it the way you need to adapt it, and move forward. So as a fellow X-Men fan, I got to say I disagree with you, dude. I love the way they handle the costumes in the X-Men films. That's just me.
I mean, I do agree that Bryan Singer took certain liberties in the first two, that I didn't fully agree with all of them, but I do agree with John in the sense that, I mean, there has to be a middle ground. You have to adapt, and you have to make it, you know, big screen friendly, but you also have to keep it true to the fans a bit, because if it's completely a new costume and has no resemblance of what we read in the comics, then I'm slightly offended by that too. So I definitely think there's a middle ground. I mean, some of them, as much as I love Jackman and I'm good with seeing him in tight clothes, no, I don't want to see yellow spandex. I mean, and I do think that there's really just a middle ground. But I think Bryan Singer is going to just take it all back. I mean, we're going to redeem The Last Stand, which was an awful third ending to the original trilogy, and I really just think we're going to see some great stuff, both in characters, costumes, effects, everything. I have a lot of faith in this film.
Andrew Valvovich writes, "Hey guys, love the show. I was wondering why there is not anything planned in Marvel's Phase 2 for another Hulk movie. I understand that they have 2 strikeouts already, but thought that with the popularity of the Avengers movie and the new Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo, it would spark interest in another movie. If it's because of FaceTime for Ruffalo, then replace him."
Look, I'm one of the guys. I've cried almost tears on this show begging Marvel to do a Hulk film. But I have to say, I kind of get the people who understood, explained it to me, and I kind of get why they don't. Look, the thing with the Hulk is he's great in spurts. It's really difficult to have I understand that it's really difficult to have a full movie about him because who does Hulk fight? I mean, because you can't have the Hulk grabbing soldiers and crushing their heads and killing 500 guys, but you can have him do that to alien invaders. That's easy. You can do that and still pull off a PG-13. So you can't have him constantly for an hour and a half running around destroying things and fighting things and whatever. And I just think they're struggling with finding a good way to handle that character in a way that you could do a full-length feature film. And so I see the challenge. I understand why they're not doing it. I want it badly, but I understand why they haven't done it. But it has nothing to do with Ruffalo wanting FaceTime. I guarantee you it has nothing to do with Mark Ruffalo wanting FaceTime.
Because he can be replaced, right? You don't care.
Because he can be replaced.
You don't care about that.
Everybody can be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides. I mean, to me, Hulk and Bruce, like, that backstory is one of the most fascinating in that ensemble to me. I just think it's really incredible. And just the whole transformation process and everything. But it's also very, very expensive, obviously, to show those special effects. And if you're not going to do it right, it looks really cheesy and dumb. I think Mark Ruffalo is a really, really good Bruce Banner, and I would like to see him continue. I would like his standalone. I was really liking the whole World War Hulk like storylines and all that being tossed around. But I mean, we do have a really exciting Phase 2 ahead of us and a Phase 3. So I'm going to take what they give me very happily right now, and based off the continuous momentum and popularity, I think that we will see another Hulk film, maybe just in a few years.
Another video question, this time from viewer Nicholas Mikulak regarding horror reboots. Take a look.
My name is Nick Mikulak. I watch the show every single day. I absolutely love it. The question I had to offer was that if you think the plans to do Army of Darkness 2 running concurrently with the Evil Dead remake continuity are successful, do you think this might set a precedent for other series to resurrect their horror franchises such as Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street that haven't fared very well as remakes and start doing sequels to the original continuities again? Thanks for choosing my question, and keep doing great work.
Great question, Nicholas, coming from a huge horror movie fanatic. I just interviewed Rob Zombie, by the way, for his new movie, Lords of Salem, and he is the coolest guy ever. So I think this is a really, really interesting question. I mean, Evil Dead opens tonight, by the way, 10 p.m., and it's awesome. I know that a lot of diehard Evil Dead fans were a little skeptical at first, and then when we heard that it was a reimagining and not just a straight, reboot, that's what made me happy. I think that's the angle that they should take with reimagining horror films, because if you're going to straight remake it, and most of the ones that hold up, the Halloweens of the world and Night of the Living Dead and all of the really, really good classic horror films that hold up, I don't think they should just be straight remade, even though they have a lot of them. But you look at them and they don't kind of translate the same way. So I think reimagining is the ticket. Do little tosses, like nods to the trilogies that we love and to the originals that we love, but also reinvent it for this generation like they did with Evil Dead. There's a lot of, even like the scene driving up, I'm not going to give away too much, don't worry, but there's a lot of things that make us really happy that are nods to the original trilogy. So I really think that's the answer. In terms of an Army of Darkness 2, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell in it, come to mama. I mean, that is exactly, if it's the original people that created it, they're going to do a fantastic job. But if it's not the original duo, trio, whoever it is, I think that the reimagining is the ticket. So you don't piss anyone off, but you also bring back the character and the story and just kind of all that we love.
And I agree with everything Amy Rose said.
Joseph Cabrera writes, "Hello, here is my question. In the last few years, we've seen movies like Transformers hit the big screen, as well as popular 80s, 90s cartoon TV shows in pre-production, aka He-Man and TMNT. But I think the movie that should get the big screen treatment is Thundercats. If I was in charge of a movie studio, I would get my hands on a property like this. It has huge potential in toys, marketing, and box office."
Thanks so much for the question, Joseph. This is another situation where people who are fans of a particular thing and have a couple of other friends who are fans of it too have the misrepresentation that means it's massive and popular. The fact of the matter is, I mean, I love Thundercats. I love Thundercats. But, I mean, it would be very, very challenging to make a Thundercats movie. I mean, if you want to really look at the popularity of the title, they launched a new Thundercats show in 2011. It lasted one season. And now it's on hiatus because it just couldn't get the series premiere had some really good numbers, and then it dropped. And now the series is on permanent hiatus, and they haven't been able to get back to making it again. So I think you're really overestimating how popular it is. I think we all think of Thundercats and we think fondly of it, but that doesn't necessarily translate into people willing to commit time to watch it on TV or go and pay $10 and go see it at a movie. So if I were a studio head, I wouldn't take it. Now, if some studio made it, I'm first in line to watch it, but I don't think it's going to get made. Nor do I think a studio should roll the dice and spend $150 million on a movie that would probably lose them a lot of money.
I'm still smiling from this. That was cute. I completely agree with what you said, John. I mean, while there is a market for it, I do think that, you know, some other shows and movies and everything lend it more to a larger fan base. I would also really enjoy seeing it, but I mean, it went off the air pretty quickly for a reason, and I think that that's just kind of the reality.
Zach Ahmed writes, first of all, I would like to thank every single person in front and behind the show to make it possible. Thank you all, and you guys rock.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Zach. I was just wondering, why don't Marvel and Warner Brothers get together and bring their best characters out to make a giant film so both don't lose their rights and in the meantime both make tons of money?
Woo!
Well, okay. There's actually really in a fantasy world we all think about that.
Sounds amazing.
Imagine X-Men and Superman and Batman and Spider-Man all doing all the kind of stuff together. But there are a lot of really big hurdles. Number one, we all legitimately complain when we think a movie is packing in too many characters. So we all worry about that because that is a legitimate concern. If you start throwing Avengers in with Justice League and with this and in with that, and then suddenly that becomes a real problematic movie. But here's the big problem. Here's the big problem. You will never get two massive studios with with different sets of very popular and profitable characters who could ever work together on this. Because here's a great example. Let's say you had a movie with Batman and Captain America. Okay, let's say you made that movie. Who's in charge of it? Who gets to greenlight the script? Who gets to pick the director?
Yeah.
And then every single shot will become this heated legal battle between two giant studios. Wait a minute. Batman is standing in the better light in this scene with Captain America standing behind him. That makes our character Captain America looks like he's diminutive compared to Batman. I mean, it would just be nothing but problems and hassle and fighting and legal battles and all that kind of crap. And so I don't think that can happen. And here's the other thing. You mentioned that you think they could make a lot of money. Marvel has no problem making lots of money.
Nope.
They're doing just fine on their own. The Batman films are having no problem making tons of money on their own. And so there's problems. And from the studio's point of view, they don't need it because they're making all the money in the world already. Amy Rose?
Yeah, Disney Marvel doesn't really seem like they don't really need help. I mean, they're making quality films, they're making lots of money, they're keeping the fans happy, they're bringing new ones in. I think they're on course. Now, Warner Brothers is obviously the lesser of the two in terms of being able to bring out these comic book movies that we love. Their track record has not been so great to date.
Aside from Batman.
Well, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, we all know I'm a Nolan. That's one of my favorite trilogies of all time, if not my favorite. But aside from that, the Green Lanterns of the world, all of them, we've talked about this countless times on the show. They have like something there, but it doesn't fully deliver. So I think out of the two, they need help from Marvel more than Warner Brothers could really bring anything to the table, other than the amazing characters that they own. Now, Superman Man of Steel, I think that's going to change everything. That's going to be really make WB a force to be reckoned with again, because I really do think it's the Superman film we've all been waiting for. So I think that would be great. And another thing that you brought up, like, you know, script and all of that, what about the profit? Will they split it 50-50? I don't think so. I mean, there's always, dealing with one studio is a large enough problem with all the moving parts, much less two. The most that studios work together is like international and domestic, releasing them that way. But to do a big thing domestically and international, that would be really sticky. Too many cooks in the kitchen, as much as we would dream about it.
Marcus Hatch writes, "Hey everybody, I love the YouTube channel of yours, and I was wondering whether or not you think it would be a good idea to make a high-budget Dragon Ball Z film. I know that there have been Dragon Ball Z films made in the past, but nothing with a high budget. It seems like there are many fans that enjoy the Dragon Ball Z series, but maybe it's too late for this movie to be made."
This is, once again, this is much like Thundercats, where I think people in a certain fan community overestimate how well their property could do. There was a Dragon Ball movie. Now, granted, it was bad, but nobody knows it's going to be bad until they go and see it. And the original Dragon Ball Z movie, I think it was called Dragon Ball Evolution, made $9 million. $9 million domestically. You want them to make a big budget film. I think a lot of fans would love to see a big budget film. So, but what is that $100 million thing where the last time they tried to do it, only $9 million worth of people went? And even less than that on opening weekend. So yeah, the movie was bad, but remember, word doesn't get out about how bad it is till people go and see it. And real fans, even if they hear a movie is bad, like if I hear the next Iron Man 3 is terrible, I'm still going to give it a shot on opening weekend because I'm a fan. And I think if Dragon Ball Z fans were really out there and they were really movie-going people, and then the first Dragon Ball movie would have at least made 30 or 40 million domestically, but instead it made 9. So I just don't think we are ever going to see a live-action, large-budget motion picture version of Dragon Ball Z. Not saying it couldn't be great. I'm not saying that you couldn't make a good movie. I'm simply saying financially the numbers don't work.
Yep, I think you nailed it.
All right, well, that was agreeable. All right, folks, listen, that'll do for us. We've run out of time. We've gone way over time, as a matter of fact. But thank you for joining us. Listen, while I've got you, take a second and click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And listen, go on out and see a movie tonight, like The Evil Dead. Head over to www.amctheaters.com for all your theater and showtime and your movie tickets. And listen, if you want an audio-only version of this show, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and Stitcher Radio so you can listen to us on the way to work. As always, I'd like to thank our lovely host, Miss Jenna Phillips.
Thanks so much.
The AMC Associate Editor of Movie News, Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach. And thank you to you guys. Listen, the most important part of the show is not what we have to say, it's what you have to say. Make sure you jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts on any or all of the topics we discuss here today, like why I am so very right about the Robert Downey Jr. issue.
Why I'm right. Yay!
Thanks again so much for joining us. Until next time, my name is John Campion for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.